Mr Anderson. Senator McAllister.
Thanks very much. So when the report was released, the then Attorney-General, Mr Porter, issued a media release with the Minister for Women. Welcomed the report and said that the government would take the time to carefully consider the report and its recommendations. Since that time, which was in March the 5th last year, what role has the Attorney-General taken in overseeing the government's response to the Respect at Work report?
So since the report was released, it was tabled by the Attorney-General. We were also provided funding in October last year in the 2021 budget, $2.1 million, to fund implementation of a number of the key recommendations. And one of those recommendations in particular was the establishment of the Respect at Work Council to promote safer workplaces and provide advice to government. And that council has convened, and its first meeting was held on the 19th of March.
Thanks, Ms Chidgey.
And work's
I'm particularly
also
interested
underway to establish an online platform, training materials, and conduct a national survey with that funding.
Okay. I'm interested in particular, though, in the Attorney-General's role. How many meetings has Mr Porter had with departmental officers regarding implementation of the Respect at Work report?
We've had a meeting with the Assistant Minister. We have not met, as far as I recall, with the Attorney, but I will check that that's with other officers that that's the case.
Okay, so no meetings at all with Mr Porter in relation to this report, which the Sex Discrimination Commissioner said was urgent.
I should say we have had submissions to the Attorney and also a lot of interaction with the Attorney's office.
I see, but the Attorney himself has in no way personally engaged with the department in a face-to-face meeting about the implementation of this report in a year.
I'm not aware of a face-to-face meeting. I said I would take on notice and check that that's the case, but we have had other interaction.
I see. Minister Stoker, what is your role now in relation to the report? You took on the role as Assistant Minister in December. Mm-hmm. Are you now responsible for responding to the report?
I am now responsible.
And when was that responsibility provided to you?
I'd have to check the date, but it was sometime in January.
Right, okay. And why was that?
I think it is fairly obvious that as the Assistant Minister to the Attorney-General, a number of the matters that were on his plate were delegated to me, and this is a matter I had expressed an interest in, and I have been working with the department. Ms Chidgey mentioned both face-to-face and in remote means to make sure that I fully understand the importance of the report, understand fully its recommendations, and I've been working with the department to finalise the government's response, which, while I won't give you a date, I'd suggest is imminent.
Right. You said that there are a number of matters on the Attorney-General's plate and that he handed some of those to you. Was there a concern in public trust in the Attorney-General to handle the matters dealt with in the report, given the allegations in relation to his own conduct?
No, the motivation was associated with the opportunity he had as somebody now with a parliamentary secretary at his disposal to share the load. It wasn't motivated by any particular event. It was about making sure that the person with the interest in the matter was the one dealing with it.
So it wasn't an attempt to manage any conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest?
Not as I understand it, no.
I see. In the forward to the report, as I indicated, the Sex Discrimination Commissioner said that the need for change was urgent. She made that very clear. there's been very little practical progress in implementing the regulatory and legislative framework that she sets out in that report.
I disagree, but I would suggest that the 9 recommendations on which there has been implementation action already indicates that progress is being made and more progress is expected. But I'm happy to allow you to continue, even though we disagree on that point.
What engagement have you had with the Minister for Women in relation to the implementation of the report?
I have met with and discussed the matters arising from the report with the Minister for Women.
Right,
I won't detail the nature of our conversations, being private conversations between 2 individuals, but she is as invested in seeing the progress of the report as I am.
So you've met with her on one occasion?
We have spoken about it many times.
In the release that the Attorney-General put out with the Minister for Women, it was stated that the government will now take the time to carefully consider the report and its recommendations, recognising that states and territories and the private sector also have a role to play. I note that the communique from the Council of Attorneys-General on the 27th of July last year included reference to 10 topics, none of which had anything to do with responding to the Respect at Work report or implementing its urgent recommendations. Can you explain why that matter wasn't discussed by Attorneys-General?
Being before my time, I'll take it on notice.
I note on the website that there are 3 identified priorities for the meetings of the Attorneys-General over the next year, and they do not include anything to do with the responding to the Respect at Work report or implementing any of its recommendations. Can you explain why that is?
I'll take it on notice only because it's often the case that the workflow involves the completion of some tasks before the commencement of others, and I wouldn't want to make any assumptions. So I'll check that out and get back to you.
And Senator, I might just add that we will obviously do some work with states and territories at officer level on aspects that might ultimately be considered by Attorneys General, but many aspects of the Respect at Work report would be relevant to women's safety ministers as well as industrial relations ministers.
Has it been listed for consideration by women's safety ministers?
Not that I'm aware, but we're
Right.
talking to the Office for Women about the processes and aspects of the new national plan.
Okay, well, it's just difficult, isn't it? Because a year ago, or more than a year ago, the Minister for Women and the Attorney-General said that this was an urgent matter and that the government would consider the report recognising the role of states and territories. But it appears that none of the formal institutions to coordinate with states and territories have been used to deal with this report to date. Not even a discussion?
Do you have a question, Senator McAllister?
Yes, was there a discussion at any point over the last year in any of the forums that function to coordinate activity across the states and territories? Has there been a discussion with counterparts between the Attorney-General and his counterparts?
That's already been taken on notice.
But
I should add, though, that there's no impediment to the attorney talking to counterparts from other states. It doesn't have to be in one of those forums. There's, as they say, more than one way to skin a cat.
Yes, there is. I just see no evidence that it's happened. I'm interested in any evidence that the department can bring forward that the Attorney-General has engaged with his counterparts in states and territories about this urgent matter at any time. He certainly doesn't appear to have engaged with the department.
Senator McAllister, we are at the end of your allotted time for this block.
Thanks.
So we do need to